What's up, everybody? I'm James. Welcome to Mechanical Mayhem, and welcome to the MechWarrior 5 Clans Flashstorm DLC story-driven campaign playthrough. This is where we will be checking out all the cutscenes, listening to the banter, and I'll be going over things pertaining to what's going on, the greater scheme of the Battletech lore, and all stuff in between for this really fun DLC campaign. We are one of the Silverroot Keshik, and I'll be doing this campaign with custom builds on expert difficulty. So, with that in mind, strap yourselves in and prepare for drop.
Thank you for joining me, Ghost Bears.
How is your mech, Sakan?
The techs believe they can salvage it.
Good. We want you back on the field with us.
I will be. Shortly.
Has there been a new development?
Since before we arrived, we've been trying to locate the heart of their mech production. If we could gain control of it, and cripple the DCMS's reinforcement capabilities, it would mean Al Shane would fall much faster.
The DCMS has used misdirection and various tactics to mask their high-value targets.
But we have uncovered a major one.
In the city of Bergen, an old map of the region showed a factory power grid powering all mech manufacturing in the surrounding area. Then it disappeared.
But there are no logs showing any attacks in the area that could have leveled it.
And a building does not just get up and walk away.
I had our watch conduct multi-spectrum scanning in regions we already covered. And we got a hit. The Caretans were using a thermal cloaking device to obscure the facility.
But now the tarp is off.
We will insert into the city of Bergen and secure that factory. If we knock out the grid, powering all of their mech production and repairs in the region...
They will have a tough time making war.
But this will be no easy task. Scans show the facility is very well defended. The second have artillery and fighters at their disposal. Star Captain Lilith, you will insert from the caves on this approach point here. Your objective is to enter the facility at the main entrance here.
No back doors on this one.
The gate will be sealed, so you will need to override it to get inside. I will lead Alpha and Charlie on the other side of the facility here and engage their forces. We will try and buy you enough time to secure the facility. Once that is done, we will link up at the rally point here. Striking at this facility will be a major blow to the DCMS, Ghost Bears. Gear up and let us move out.
It's time to attack a facility, and we are under tonnage. It even gives us a warning because we are significantly under tonnage. Should be noted, last mission where I mucked up some of my movement and took unnecessary damage for both my and my star mechs. We were also under tonnage, but not by this much. This is just part of what happens at this juncture of the game. Given the logistical issues, it can be difficult to actually be of significant enough tonnage at this mission, I've noticed. Especially if you're doing custom builds and prioritizing mechs that can be dramatically increasing survivability. Executioner has a center torso issue, right? So I don't tend to use it in gameplay a lot when I'm doing custom builds for raw survival, so I don't have extra tonnage to at least make the star heavier. But it's okay, because tonnage isn't everything, as we are being told what to do here. So, as you'll see, my Kodiak and Jonathan's Warhawk are damaged. This can happen in the Smoke Jackal campaign too. If you take too much damage for your repair techs to basically repair it in time for the next mission, your mech's going to be damaged. You either have to roll with it or take a new mech. I don't have another Kodiak standing by, and if I did, it would be taken by one of my star mates, so we're rolling with these damaged mechs, but it's okay. The damage isn't that bad, and I know in this mission there are repair bays, so I just got to be much more careful in my movement and not be so reckless, and we'll be just fine. We also see pretty much the only time, for the most part, that we see this is in this mission we can activate cover. So I activate it more than I really need to. Honestly, the only reason I activated it the first time is to get the objective off, and then I just like scanning stuff, so I activate more. It's not bad, but I gotta be honest, it's more so just teaching you for later, and even then you don't really need it. It can get in the way of shooting, and we have range advantage on these hemisphere targets, so you really don't need to scan much at all in terms of cover. It's a neat idea, but it can obviously block our shots on them as well, so just bear that in mind when you decide to scan these things or not. So As you see, my mech is already damaged. I already went over that. It's what happens when you have too much damage taken, like what happened last mission. I could have re-recorded that mission. You'll never would have known, and I could have had pristine mechs. I just decided to roll with this. It's expert difficulty after all, so it's not meant to be just a cakewalk. Still a lot of fun, and I know both my star's configuration, I know this mission, I know the repair base. I'm not really that worried. I did change my Kodiak's loadout. It's the same Kodiak chassis, the Kodiak 1. But instead of having ballistic equipment on there, I went ahead and I made it pure energy because that's just how I roll. And I did it in what you could call it boring sense, but it actually works out quite nicely. I went 4 ER large lasers and 4 ER medium lasers. I gave myself more armor and whatnot. And while this has a high cycle time, you know, it's more burst damage than DPS, so it takes some time for these weapons to recharge and be used again. The damage output is very good, and when you combine it with the rest of the star, which is pretty potent, we can absolutely melt through stuff when we decide to fire at things, more or less, so it's quite nice. Just as a random side note, I used to do a lot of like DPS style of builds, like ER smalls everywhere and whatnot, but with the range difference, I just wanted to really flex longer range, so I decided to go into burst damage builds, and I don't know which one is considered to be superior now in the highest difficulty, but this is working out well enough on experts, so I think that speaks for itself. Watch out for the Igors. They're always annoying. You have one to prioritize taking them out alongside these mechs. But that's pretty much all we're dealing with, is light and medium mechs, maybe a heavy in there, some air assets, turrets, and artillery. So I just punched that commando to take it out because my lasers were recharging, and you know, why not? We are a gigantic bear with claws, let's maul them a little bit. Now what's kind of funny about that is the Kodiak in lore terms, being a totem mech is designed to have the claws because aesthetically it's designed to embody the spirit animal, be an avatar in mech form of the spirit animal, the totem animal, if you will, which is like a spirit animal for the clan. In this case it's a ghost bear, so we have a big old bear Kodiak build, right? All of that is to say that while it looks suitably impressive and dangerous, technically on the lore side, the Kodiak's claws are for aesthetics only and not any extra capability in the melee. But it's a 100-ton assault mech with claws. I'm gonna punch stuff, you know. It's just the way we do things as players. So there you go. So we punch through the mechs. We punch through the air, we're taking out turrets, and we're taking out artillery because, well, we don't need them here. They're our enemies, we're going to take them out. We don't see them, but on the opposite side of the facility, outside of our tactical view of anything in our sensor range, are our allies launching an attack to kind of be somewhat of a diversion and just force them to split their forces a bit, right? Obviously, we're going in the main entryway, we're going in. I'm sure comm chatter is a light on the enemy command side of being infiltrated, or not so much infiltrated, but being invaded like this, so I'm sure they're going to try to divert more to us. But they are now split, in essence, which is the whole thing we learned about mission briefing, of course.
I am sure if there are cracks for them to hide in, they will find them.
We don't have to shoot this stuff down like I am. You can just walk through it. It won't damage you. This isn't MechWarrior 3, but sometimes it's fun to shoot them, so I like it. So, we do have to be careful. My mech is pretty decently damaged. It does have more extra armor than it did. But we want to be careful because being in a facility like this, we lose out on range advantage. So we're gonna have to rely on just raw upfront damage on these targets to really cripple them. And I definitely recommend just focus firing, and if you see a mech that has like medium range, short range stuff, definitely prioritize taking that mech out. And this will typically be your medium and light mechs. This cicada, it doesn't have a lot of firepower, but it has consistent firepower to make use of. This dervish, unfortunately, has LRM, so it's not going to do particularly well in here, so I'm less concerned about it over the other stuff that was also part of this, this little lance against us. So, we basically only have the dervish left, so now we can really focus on it. It's not doing too well in here. as you'd expect.
New hostile detected.
So the whole point of this is to get inside and basically take over this facility. We're going to disable it in the short term, and then once we clear out the DCMS in this region, we're going to add this infrastructure to our holdings because, well, we want the planet, and this would be a great tool on the planet. Typical clan behavior, right? They don't want to outright destroy things. If this was a inner sphere versus inner sphere style invasion, this would have been, you know, wanting to be captured, but also would have had no qualms about just leveling it either in an outright assault if need be. So it's a difference in viewpoint of things. Here we have another room to fight in, another tight room to fight in, but we can just obliterate things as they come in with our raw damage output, which is very handy, even though we have to be careful because our allies walking away. This center little pool floor thing doesn't really do any damage. I never went inside to see if it does anything at all. It could just be purely aesthetic, but when I see liquid pooling in like a space like that that looks kind of glowy, my thought is to not step in it, but my star doesn't care. I also told them to defend basically that area, so they went in it. And they didn't have anything happen to them, so shouldn't have to worry. So we are now, as we see a bunch of industrial mechs, we are now just taking out the defenders to mostly keep them from potentially burning it down around us. So, as Innispheres want to do, if they can't have the facility, then no one can. And the clan doesn't want that. The clan wants it to be a case of, you can't have the facility, but we can. So that's why we're going to take out defenders, we're going to disable certain things, and we're going to generally push them off of this. Basically drive the ants from their anthill. So, some mines inside, you gotta be careful. Always use scan mode. You can never be too careful with that. You know, just take a peep in scan mode once in a while. And now we're back into a little bit bigger room, but we have more mechs to fight. But it's okay because this is the repair bay room. So don't be reckless, but you can definitely be much more aggressive. Focus fire down mechs. Do whatever you gotta do because we need them out of here so we can eventually repair. I don't believe we have any armor blow-throughs on anybody, even though both myself and Rick have taken decent damage. I swear every time Rick's in a mission, which is every time he's part of the star, he just attracts damage, like mechs shooting at him. I don't know why. So even though these are much lighter mechs than the Kodiak, we get to see the burst damage philosophy in action by whole sections of mechs being blown off per salvo of shot, right? It's a little bit different from DPS where you can be shooting at much higher rates, much higher frequencies, but you're not just doing chunks of mech damage at a time.
All target objectives achieved.
So, 5 bays, there's 5 mechs and a star, everybody gets the repair, which is good because we want everybody in tip-top shape for basically a boss fight. So this gargoyle doesn't have the bajillion medium lasers, that would be Rick, but we still have lots of firepower, right? We have probably about 20-something or more medium lasers in this star. We have 10 ERPPCs in this star, and there are 4 large lasers in this star. This is a high-powered star for sure, which is good because we're going to be facing a high hit point boss, you can call it. This is the mission. This is the mission about what they were talking about and having us have one of the most intense kind of enemy fights in MechWarrior, period. The Sokols in the Smoke Jaguar campaign were kind of the start of this concept, so was the Gazelle, but this is a ground variant version of this, and we saw pictures of this when they first announced this game, or this DLC. So, here we go, a little bit of an intro cutscene, because why not?
What the hell is that? A fearsome killing machine.
How did we not know the DCMS has that bastard in service? I think I would rather face down another ghost bear. All I see is a bigger target.
I don't know. I don't think I want to face a ghost bear. I think the ghost bear would be deadlier, which is what normally every Silverroot Kesha member does, is they face down a ghost bear and they have to succeed, and they get, that's one of the criteria for joining the Silverroot. So they're a particularly vicious Kesha. They're known for being very vicious in and out of their mechs.
but not as fast as we can. I say patience.
You might be a ghost bear after all, Jonathan.
Further exemplifying patience, Jonathan is slowly
right.
being more accepted
Patience.
by the Silver Root,
Choose our shots well.
even though he is a fresh cub.
Sir, Captain.
This is
Tara, you have advanced scanners.
another
Talk
very
to me.
kind of gimmicky style of fight, like the Sokals and the Gazelles, and even Union dropships in the Smoke Jaguar campaign. This is of a similar context, only we have specific weak points to take out to actually damage this thing, for the purposes of taking it down.
Designation Iron Talon.
This Iron Talon is very powerful. It's got loads of defensive turrets. It'll have pretty potent cannons that pop up every so often. It has treads to take down, and when it's basically recharging slash reducing its heat because it'll build up too much heat.
Find cover until it maxes out.
You know, and like Lily said, it'll max out, so it needs to vent it off. Then vents will open up, which are also weak points, so we do some damage to it.
This thing is a hulking beast, but it can really move.
So
Focus fire on the treads so we can stop it in its tracks.
I haven't noticed the treads actually slowing
the treads,
down.
that should slow it down.
That being said, whenever I destroy the fourth tread, typically that takes out this thing,
We cannot allow it to reach
health-wise.
its intended firing position.
What I mean is, obviously with no treads it won't move, but I feel like it moves the same speed with 4 treads or just 1 tread.
Then we need to throw everything at it.
So, outside of being a good source of extra damage to the Iron Talon's health, I haven't really noticed anything debilitating doing this outside of when all 4 are gone. Not a big deal, it's just something worth noting.
And the vents are exposed.
So when the vents are exposed, you can really do some damage. Now, you're not going to notice a big chunk of damage happening to the Iron Talon in just damaging the vents, but when you destroy them, you'll notice a decent chunk going down. So we just started the fight against it, really, and we're almost down to half health, but there's a lot of defensive turrets. There are enemy mechs that are going to start dropping out of the Iron Talon or just joining the battle in general, and it's a case of prioritizing your targets. One thing I have noticed is that your AI, when they are targeting the mechs, will move a lot closer to the Iron Talon than when they target the Iron Talon for whatever reason. Now those cannons are particularly dangerous, I don't like them, so you want to be careful. They pop up sporadically, and that's how I think it really generates heat for itself, but it's some pretty good damage out there. My recommendation is to focus the treads as much as possible, then focus on the vents whenever they pop up, and then whenever the mechs are there, pretty much cripple all the mechs before going back to the vents.
Focus fire on the treads.
And
We need to immobilize this thing.
as far as the defensive turrets, they'll basically keep returning, so just take them out if they're really annoying to you. The non just outright giant cannon ones will go down pretty quick. This is an interesting boss fight style thing. It's not your traditional MechWarrior way of doing stuff, but I think they did a good job with it. It doesn't feel out of place, right? It doesn't feel like awkwardly out of place or anything, which is important because something like this can easily feel like it doesn't belong in a game like this. And it's definitely, in my opinion, skirting that line just a little bit, but ultimately, I think a successful rendition of doing this. I think that AI needs to be a bit better programmed for moving up with you and kind of keeping up with things, because if you notice, they're really far back and they're fighting off mechs, so that's fine. But even when there aren't mechs there, they tend to linger further back, which is great for all the stuff on the rear of the Iron Talon, but things don't suddenly regenerate, so we have to destroy the treads in the front too. There'll be vents in the front also that will only open up after you destroy the vents in the back. So you have to kind of like get your star up front, and that can be problematic as this thing constantly moves. However, I've noticed once I've taken out all 4 treads, typically by this juncture, the last tread's going to also destroy the Iron Talon. So, you know, a little quirky in how it's set up, but ultimately it works out well enough. I can't really complain too much about it. It's a fun fight. It's definitely a bit dangerous. As you notice, we all repaired, and look at the damage this entire star has withstood just to take this out. It's definitely a very health intensive, armor intensive fight against this thing. And I suppose, knowing that this is in this mission, if you kit out your star a bit more appropriately for stuff, you might be able to be a little bit more efficient in taking this thing out like we just did. So yeah, we just hit it enough times to take it down after getting some decent weak point damage chunking, and it worked pretty well. But you look at Rick. Rick has no cockpit armor left and no leg armor left, and some pretty critical damage in certain locations. So definitely could have gone worse for us. We knocked it out, and we basically took over this facility. They lost a very powerful asset to DCMS in terms of the story of this game. Now, does the Iron Talon like truly exist as a thing in BattleTech? I can't say 100% no. There's nothing really brought up about stuff like this. And what this actually reminded me of, if you know Gundam at all, are the mobile armors, right? So you have Gundam with their mobile suits, and then you have those big monstrosities known as mobile armors, which are definitely more dangerous, but ultimately flawed in some way compared to a mobile suit. And that's what this feels like. And I kind of dig it, but it's also one of those things where, like, we don't really see that in the lore at all. But the idea of the DCMS basically saying, screw it, strap a bunch of stuff to a gigantic moving facility and just up armor it like whoa and put more guns on it, that makes sense. Definitely feels like something you would do in an attempt to defend against an invasion. So I can't fault it, I don't dislike it, but this is definitely one on the more radical side of things to do in a MechWarrior game, but it worked in this case. And in future DLCs, they should definitely take note of that and not try to go too much further than what we have in Flashstorm for stuff like that. And don't overuse it. Like, we're not going to see the Iron Talon ever again, spoiler alert, and that's fine, right? It's not like it suddenly becomes an enemy type. Stuff like that as a set piece, I think, works out best. But we are done, and we do have more Kodiaks to get if we want to. They are different. Right, so the SB here has mask, which is pretty funny, but it does come at the expense of payload capacity. So we have the Kodiak 5, which is a more long-rangey Kodiak. You see it has a Gauss rifle and whatnot. So there's a lot of capability, even though we don't have Omnipod sets that mix and match. We just will have to do a particular chassis and upgrade that. So what I will be doing is I will be beefing up my Stars weight class, doing some research and everything else, and of course doing the typical stuff in terms of leveling up the star itself by expanding their experience. I haven't really talked too much about that as of yet. It's been pretty straightforward. You basically want to max out evasion for everybody first. Once that's maxed out, since I go energy heavy, I pick anything that's going to be a benefit. So for Tara, I use heavy arms a lot. Sometimes mech expert just because it's funny. And everybody else, if they have any energy range or heat management or anything like that, I tend to go for things like that before other stuff because I use energy heavy builds all the time. Anyways, pretty par for the course. Nothing kind of crazy that way. And yeah, not much else to say there. A fun mission. And even though our mechs were a little damaged going in, we came out of it pretty well. Our mechs will be a-okay for the next mission. So thanks so much for tuning in and stopping by. And until next time, take care.